Hello, Collab Design for Literacy students. This is Marcos, and this is our week 2 going to week 3 recap briefing video for our Design for Literacy class. And we had a great second week on Thursday with our research presentations and concept statements, and everyone did such a great job. Lots of really, really compelling ideas, and looking forward to seeing how you guys will now develop them further into concept presentations. So let's talk about next steps. I'm going to try to make this really quick because I talked way too much in the other video. So just for next steps, you're going to take the feedback that you got on Thursday and understand it, comprehend it. It doesn't mean automatically do everything said, just like figure out what you think works best for you, respond to that feedback. Maybe you want to update or finalize your concept statement if you haven't finished that yet and develop that so that it makes sense. And then from there, we're going to create um, two things. We're going to develop a storyboard that outlines the entire architecture and preliminary layout placement of your storybook. And we're going to then create a couple of concept design sketches. We're going to start developing the design technique, the illustration technique, and explore how that's going to work and apply it to a cover and a layout or a spread or two of your book to begin to visualize what that could look like. So let's look at what that could be on the canvas. We have these statements there that give more detail to that we talked about already in class. So let's just jump in. I got some new examples that I didn't show in class, and this is a pretty good example of what I mean by storyboard, where you think through the architecture of how your book's going to work, like you know what your concept is. Now you're going to try to figure out what subject matter you want to express. How do you organize something like planets, like this book about the night sky and the galaxy? So there's so many planets and there's so many spreads, and how do you tell the story that within the amount of spreads you have, and kind of create this working storyboard that will help you get there. Now, it looks great and everything, but there's one flaw here that I want you to make sure you guys don't miss, which is there's actually not the right amount of spreads here. There should be 7 spreads, and there's one, two, three, four, five. So there's 2 spreads missing. And of course, that really matters in terms of like, how do I organize the galaxy into spreads? You got to work with the right amount of spreads. So whatever your concept is, make sure you're working with 7 spreads, and then either a spread that has the cover and back or the cover and back separately, like she's done here. So remember that 7 spreads and a cover back spine. And that's how you should create the architecture of your book. And here's another example of creating the architecture, but also pretty much getting into the illustration style and the design all in one. And this isn't necessarily the depth you have to do with your storyboard. It can be a little looser like this, or it could even be simply words like I showed you on Thursday. But it might not be bad to take the time now to begin to try to quickly sketch out how you think your story is going to be told, or the information you're presenting will be put out there. And when you're thinking about this, like keep in mind, this is not a traditional book that necessarily you're going to read like a narrative, but it's more of a, let's call it a performance. It's something that most likely an adult will have and will deliver to a young child, maybe as young as less than 1 year old. Yes, of course, kids will, excuse me, get older and they will look through the books on their own, and that's a legitimate way of looking at it as well. Um, but it's not for the age where they necessarily will be able to read the book and read the story. That's our next assignment. So just keep in mind the user of this book and how you can prompt them to do things. You can prompt them to add to the story. You can prompt them to do activities, make noises, point at things, say things out loud, um, or give further details about what these characters, maybe like in this example that you're developed, are about, finding ways to give them places to point or express themselves. So anyway, in terms of the storyboard, this is a pretty nice example of kind of a loose but specific version of an example. From there, I want you then to begin to develop your illustration style or your typography or your color, whatever you're doing, begin to experiment with that. And here you see she begins to do some kind of character development going from a little bit of a rougher sketch and showcasing the main star of her. We'll call it, she's got a star in her shirt. The main character of her book, and showcasing how she can look in different ways. Um, Giving some name options. So it's kind of developing the content and the style at the same time, and maybe taking that a little bit further and developing other characters and beginning to draw what might end up being the asset that you use in your actual final illustrations. Again, this is a concept preliminary stage, so you don't have to go too far. These are maybe further than you have to go, but it's what you should be doing in sort of terms of developing it. And then again, trying to create specifics on what the cover and what spreads could look like and the style you're going to do. And of course, there's color as well. So that's another thing you might want to begin to experiment with that this person hasn't yet, but it's the concept, so it doesn't have to necessarily have color added to it yet. So this is just an overview of what that looks like. Okay, so these are those are a couple of good examples of what you're doing. And then I'm reminding you that on the canvas, I put a link to the InDesign file that has um, the template, the design template that I want everyone to work from eventually. You don't have to do it this week necessarily, but it might help you in seeing how there are 8 spreads. The first page has got the back, the spine, and the cover, and how the cover needs to have the dirt logo on it. The spine needs to have the logo at the bottom as well, where they're positioned. And the back has this blurb about dirt and about you and the UPC code, and that's going to be in a white rectangle. It's going to stay exactly there. You can't move that around. You can't change the type style. That's standard for all dirt storybooks, but you can use all the live area. And then remember that there is this bleed issue that if you're creating color or pattern or your illustration goes all the way to the edges, that we have to make sure that you do extra. And there's this kind of like 3/8 of it. It's kind of big because it's a big, thick book, but we have to expand your illustrations so that we can cut off the pages and not have the little white mark show and not have that kind of mistake show. So make sure if you're making your document, maybe make it bigger, that as big as that red mark is, bigger than 5 5/8. Um, and then this just kind of shows on the document itself. I think this box is there. It's just not activated, but it just shows you how there is a white box around the dirt logo. You can remove that if you want, or leave it there if it's easier to get around your design. This opacity box of white behind these blurb words is there, and the spine is defined here where these white lines are. So that's where your back is on the left and your cover on the right. All right, so the assignment is up on Canvas, and it has links to the baby board book template, as well as I put in a link to the lecture from last week on how babies learn and the kind of various insights about what we should know about how babies' brains develop. If you want to just see the PDF, you can click that, or you can go back to the video from last week and listen to me talk about it if you want to hear more from me. And also, there's just some illustration examples on the canvas as well. And then by next Thursday, make sure you when you work on this that you continue to develop your presentation by adding pages from last week's presentation. The thank you page stays at the end. Make sure it's there, of course, but you add the concept section onto that presentation you did, so it becomes bigger and it becomes more comprehensive, as that's going to build throughout the assignment and throughout the semester, and you'll have that available as a full story of your work. So make sure you upload that to part 2, concept development, by Thursday evening, and we will have Demi join us as a guest feedbacker, if that's a word. And so be prepared not only to share with me, but to kind of start from the beginning when you're talking about your concept and you're talking about your direction, as she won't know anything about this. And it'll be a good chance for you guys to get feedback from somebody else. She's a kindergarten teacher. She's been part of DIRT for many, many years, and she's done childcare, and she's really, really good at giving feedback. So be ready on Thursday, and I look forward to seeing you guys then. If you got any questions or need feedback before then, reach out to me via email, and I will get back to you for sure. All right, guys, continue your work and your progress and have a great week.